From Karen Carpenter's rise to fame as a musical sensation to the dark and tragic events that led to her untimely death at 32. In this video, we'll share with you the brief life of Karen Carpenter while showing you some of her rare photos. As a young girl growing up in New Haven, Connecticut, Karen Carpenter had no idea that she was destined for musical greatness. But alongside her brother Richard, who was considered a prodigy on the piano, Karen's own musical talents soon emerged. It all started when the family moved to Downey, Los Angeles, when Karen was just 14 years old. In an effort to avoid gym class, Karen joined the school marching band, but it was under the guidance of their band conductor Bruce Gifford that she first picked up the glockenspiel, an instrument she wasn't too fond of at first. That is, until she saw her friend Frankie Chavez, a fantastic drummer, and was immediately inspired to become one like him. Soon, Karen was spending hours teaching herself intricate drum lines and studying various styles of drumming. She even began taking lessons from respected jazz drummer Bill Douglas, who had played with legends such as Benny Goodman and Art Tatum. And within a year, she was already handling complex time signatures like the 5/4 beat in Dave Brubeck's Take 5 with ease. But to take her drumming skills to the next level, Karen knew she needed a professional drum kit. And that's exactly what she got when she graduated from Downey High School in 1967 and received the prestigious John Philip Sousa Band Award for her musical talents. But it wasn't just drumming that Karen excelled at. She also had a natural talent for singing. And at 17 years old, she joined her brother Richard to form the iconic duo, the Carpenters. Their first public performance was in a local musical production of Guys and Dolls by Frank Loesser. And from there, their musical journey only grew to even greater heights. After their successful performance in Guys and Dolls, Karen, Richard, and one of Richard's college buddies, Wes Jacobs, formed the Dick Carpenter Trio. They were serious about their music, rehearsing daily and performing jazz in nightclubs. Karen was the main drummer at this point and sometimes sang with a vocalist named Margaret Shanor. In 1966, the trio signed a contract with RCA Records and recorded 2 instrumental tracks, but they were never released. Despite this setback, the Carpenters continued to pursue their dream of making it big in the music industry. But it was in the year 1967 that truly brought them to the spotlight. The Carpenters auditioned with bassist Joe Osborne, a member of the famous studio musician collective known as the Wrecking Crew. Initially, Karen was expected to be just the drummer, but she surprised everyone by also showcasing her incredible singing voice. Joe Osborne was so impressed that he signed her to his label Magic Lamp Records without Richard. This breakthrough led to the trio appearing on the TV talent show Your All-American College Show in 1967, and they won, with Karen playing drums and singing their rendition of Dancing in the Street. This victory caught the attention of A&M Records, who signed them to a recording contract in 1969. As the drummer and co-lead singer, Karen played a crucial role in the band, and with their first album titled Ticket to Ride, featuring her on most of the songs, there was no doubt that she was a musical force to be reckoned with. But it wasn't just about drumming. Karen also showed off her bass guitar skills on 2 tracks, All of My Life and Eve. And with their cover of the Beatles' song Ticket to Ride, the Carpenters scored their first hit single, reaching number 54 on the Billboard Hot 100. Their next album in 1970, titled Close to You, brought even greater success with 2 hit singles, We've Only Just Begun and Close to You, reaching number 1 and number 2 respectively on the Hot 100 chart. And as the band's popularity grew, so did Karen's talent and versatility in both drumming and singing. She even stepped up to the microphone more frequently during live performances, showcasing her stunning vocals and charisma as a frontwoman. From there, the Carpenters became one of the most successful groups of the early 1970s, winning 3 Grammy Awards, embarking on a world tour, and even landing their own TV variety series in 1971 titled Make Your Own Kind of Music. Karen's drumming skills and powerful vocals were truly mesmerizing, captivating audiences all over the world. But little did anyone know, behind the scenes, Karen was battling a severe mental illness that would ultimately lead to her tragic downfall. Even as the Carpenters became one of the biggest musical acts in the world, Karen was struggling with her mental and physical health. As she gained more popularity than her brother Richard, She was met not with words of encouragement, but with looks of disappointment that she had overshadowed her sibling. This constant pressure to maintain a certain image led Karen down a dangerous path of extreme dieting and body image issues. From a very young age, she started to take up dieting as a means of controlling the part of her that she thought was most visible to outsiders, her body. It all started innocently enough with a professional prescribed diet that caused Karen to drastically lose weight. But even then, it wasn't enough for her. In her eyes, she still wasn't skinny enough. She changed her diet, but this resulted in her growing muscles, which made her look heavy, something she absolutely despised. As the band's popularity grew and they embarked on world tours, Karen struggled to maintain her diet and exercise routine. She often had to perform on an empty stomach due to late dinners or go through elaborate tactics like offering food to others in order to avoid eating herself. But her struggles with body image were not the only battles Karen was fighting. As she became more famous and had to deal with constant media attention, she also faced immense pressure to maintain her image and be the perfect role model for her fans. This added stress only exacerbated her underlying mental health issues. Karen was diagnosed with anorexia nervosa, a serious eating disorder that affects both physical and psychological well-being. She also suffered from depression and constantly felt like she was not good enough, despite all of the band's success. At first, it went unnoticed by those around her. Her weight loss was often attributed to stress from the hectic touring schedule. But as the band's success continued to skyrocket, so did Karen's illness. She would often collapse on stage or during interviews, and her energy levels were constantly depleted. Her brother Richard, who was also her best friend and confidant, started to worry about her health. During a dinner at their favorite bistro in Vine Street, he complimented her weight loss, but Karen's response that she wanted to lose even more weight made him pause and realize that something was wrong. Despite his concerns, Karen would often brush off the topic of her health, insisting that she was fine and could handle everything. But behind closed doors, she was struggling to keep up with the intense demands of being a famous musician and maintaining a certain image. Karen's weight continued to drop, and by 1975, she had reached an alarming weight of just 66 pounds. She tried to hide her extremely thin figure by layering clothes and choosing low-cut or backless gowns for performances, but it was becoming increasingly difficult for those around her to ignore the signs of her illness. Even fans and critics began to take notice, with reviews noting Karen's drastic weight loss and her gaunt appearance. But no one truly understood the underlying cause of her struggle. Anorexia nervosa was a relatively new and poorly understood illness at the time. Despite her declining health, Karen remained dedicated to the band and their music. She continued to perform with all her energy and passion, often leaving audiences stunned by her powerful vocals and dynamic stage presence. But behind the scenes, she was deteriorating both physically and mentally. Despite her declining health, the Carpenters continued to tour and perform, with Karen putting on a brave face and giving it her all on stage. But eventually, her body couldn't keep up with the demands of constant touring and performing. In 1975, after collapsing during a show in Las Vegas, Karen was rushed to the hospital where she was diagnosed with physical and nervous exhaustion. She was forced to cancel their upcoming European tour, which would have been their most successful yet, due to her deteriorating health. This was the beginning of a downward spiral for Karen, as she became more withdrawn and isolated. Her illness continued to take its toll on her body, leading to a weakened immune system and frequent bouts of sickness. Meanwhile, Richard was struggling with his own personal demons, developing a drug addiction to Quaaludes. This not only affected his own health and well-being, but also took a toll on the duo's live performances and strained their relationship. The Carpenters gave their last live performance together in 1978 at the MGM Grand in Las Vegas. Karen's health had continued to decline, and she was unable to perform for several years due to her illness. During this time, Richard sought treatment for his addiction while Karen focused on her health and recovery. It was during this period that she decided to take a break from the band and pursue a solo project. While Richard was in rehab, Karen worked with producer Phil Ramone to create her first solo album titled Karen Carpenter. The album was a departure from the Carpenters' signature sound, featuring more disco and dance tempo songs in an effort to rebrand Karen's image. One of the standout tracks on the album was Something's Missing in My Life, written by Paul Jabara and Jay Asher. Many believe that this song truly reflected Karen's personal struggles and emotions, making it one of her best performances. Despite high hopes for the album, it received a lukewarm response from Richard and A&M executives. Karen also struggled with doubts and insecurities about the project, leading to delays and uncertainty about its release. After an unsuccessful attempt to launch a solo career for herself, Karen announced her engagement to a property developer called Tom Burris. At first, Tom seemed like the perfect match for Karen. He was attractive, generous, and shared many of her interests. But as their relationship progressed and they announced plans for a wedding within 2 months of meeting each other, Karen's friends became concerned. Their suspicions were confirmed when Burris revealed that he had undergone a vasectomy prior to meeting Karen, effectively ending their chances of starting a family together. This was a deal breaker for Karen, who had always dreamed of having children. Despite the shocking revelation, Karen's mother Agnes insisted that the wedding must go on. She argued that it would be too embarrassing and costly to cancel at such short notice with all the preparations already in place. The marriage did go ahead, but it was far from the happy fairy tale that Karen had hoped for. Burris turned out to be living beyond his means and constantly asked Karen for large sums of money. Not only that, but he also showed little care or affection towards her, often being impatient and even cruel at times. It became clear to Karen's close friends that this marriage was a mistake and the final straw for her already struggling mental and physical health. She confided in them about her desire to start a family and her husband's reluctance, causing great stress for Karen. In an attempt to save their marriage, friends suggested that the couple seek marital counseling, but instead of addressing their issues, the Carpenters decided to take a trip to Europe and South America, with Karen's friend Itchy joining them. During this trip, Itchy witnessed the true extent of Karen's illness. She would often buy laxatives in bulk and hide them from everyone, leading to several embarrassing incidents, such as causing a scene at a pharmacy in Paris. It was during this trip that Karen's illness became public knowledge, as she was asked about her drastic weight loss in an interview for the BBC. Despite trying to brush it off as exhaustion, Richard eventually stepped in to defend his sister and put an end to the uncomfortable questioning. But behind the scenes, Karen's struggle with anorexia was getting worse. She filed for divorce from Tom in November 1981 and embarked on a year-long recovery mission, seeking treatment from renowned therapist Stephen Levenkron. Levenkron was known for his unconventional approach to treating eating disorders, which involved gaining the trust and total dependence of his patients. Karen became completely reliant on him, both physically and emotionally. Despite some progress in her recovery, Karen's illness had taken a toll on her body. She suffered from severe dehydration and was limited to the hospital for hyperalimentation, or intravenous feeding. But even after her release from the hospital, Karen's illness persisted. She continued to struggle with anorexia and depression, leading to a relapse in her treatment. In September 1982, Karen's heart began beating irregularly and she was hospitalized once more. She underwent surgery to have a catheter implanted in her heart, but suffered an unexpected complication when doctors accidentally punctured her lung. As she slowly recovered from the surgery and began receiving artificial nutrition through the catheter, Karen's weight began to increase. This loss of control over her eating habits sparked fear in many patients, but Karen seemed pleased with her progress and showed it off to visitors. But her brother Richard saw things differently. He believed that Karen was not making any real progress and that the hospital setting was not helping her in the long run. In November, Karen started eating solid foods again and regained her menstrual cycle, a sign of improvement in both physical and emotional health. However, she decided to leave treatment against Levenkron's advice and returned home to Los Angeles. Her friends and family welcomed her back, but they could also see that she was still struggling with her illness. Karen seemed determined to resume her normal life, going out shopping and socializing without delay. But it was all a facade. Behind closed doors, Karen's struggle continued. She was taking more naps than usual and often went to bed early. Her brother Richard could see that she was not well, but others believed that she had finally beaten her illness. On February 4th, 1983, Karen's mother found her motionless on the floor of her closet in their family home. She had passed away from emmentine cardiotoxicity caused by ipecac syrup poisoning, a well-known emetic commonly used for inducing vomiting. Despite her long and difficult battle with anorexia, Karen's death shocked and devastated those who knew her. Her illness had been kept secret from the public for so long, but now it was clear that she had been fighting a losing battle against anorexia nervosa. The loss of Karen Schertzinger left a void in the music industry and in the hearts of her family, friends, and fans. But it was a wake-up call, too, for many. shedding light on the severity and dangers of eating disorders. It also sparked a conversation and debate about the treatment of these illnesses, with many questioning the effectiveness of traditional therapy methods. If you found Karen's story compelling and thought-provoking, there's a good chance you'll enjoy the video showing on your screen right now.